Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I'm Dashen. Usman. The headlines at this hour. Condemnations continue to greet Brno twin blasts as more victims arrive hospital. South Africa's Democratic Alliance Party get 12 ministries in new government. Sudan's RSF lays claim to overtaking key town. Details in a moment. We begin the news at this hour by telling you that the State Specialist Hospital in Maiduguri has become a hub of activity following the arrival of more wounded individuals from Goza, where recent bomb explosions has rocked the community. Medical personnel are stretched thin as they attend to the influx of patients, many of whom are in critical condition. Again, News Central's Umari Kirawa gives us an update on happenings in Borno State as the government visits victims of the recent explosion.
This is just the arrival of more victims of the Goza bomb explosion, including children, women and men. Crying with them are their families and loved ones here at the State Specialist Hospital, Maiduguri.
They brought that one, but there was a curfew yesterday to this effect. But as of now, I think the situation is very tense because they are just discovering some of the victims affected. As of yesterday, most of these victims were not known to be affected.
The total number of victims that have been brought to State Specialist Hospital are 42. Out of 42, 2 dead. Not within the hospital. One along the way when they are coming, he died. The other one they referred to UNTH. That is 2. Then presently we have 26 on admission at State Specialist Hospital, while 16 are discharged.
We can take care of most of our patients on our own, except for the consumables and other logistics. Those are going to be the challenges, even if RCRC is planning to withdraw. That means we need more of consumables and everything. But manpower-wise, though we are short in supply, that's human resource-wise, but the capacity is there to deliver.
The recent bomb explosion has left residents shaken and fearful, prompting renewed appeals to authorities for increased protection.
So we are all here to see our people. We sympathize with them. We call on the general public to continue to be vigilant and be prayerful, especially crowded areas. You know, people have started having laxity on the issue of checking, but I believe we have to now go back to the same culture of checking.
We are very appreciative and grateful to the acting governor for his prompt response. He's just coming back from Lagos, and when we went to him, he said he cannot say he will come here straightforward. And he hurriedly, organized us and also donated the cash donation, made a cash donation of 5 million naira for the victims here. All we can say is thank you very much, and we thank the governor of Borno State. Even though he's outside, he has been calling from time to time, trying to find out how far. This is a wake-up call to all of us in Borno State. Tomorrow we are going to Goza, as he said, to see the victims and to sympathize with them. I still want to call on all our citizens. I use this medium to call on all of us to be vigilant so that we could avoid the reoccurrence of this thing that we have almost forgotten about it.
Amidst the grief and uncertainty, residents express hope that measures will be taken swiftly to prevent such tragedies from happening in the future. Some families are still anxiously waiting for the news of their loved ones, praying for their recovery amidst the ongoing chaos. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
To discuss this further, I'm joined on the news from Borno State by social activist, medical practitioner, and Bible expositor, Dawa Adam Ibrahim. Hello, Dawa. Thank you so much for joining me at this time.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right, now, Dawa, Borno is now in the spotlight, regarding the suicide bombing after so many years. Quite a sad incident, if I must say. What do you think is responsible for this?
The world knows this is not strange. For the past decade, has been a problem in the in the entire Borno state, and even in the northeast Nigeria. I don't even want to talk about Borno specifically. I will talk about Goza, my hometown, which was made a caliphate of the Boko Haram fighters since 2009 when the war started. The responsibility for all this situation could have been as a misconception of religious belief, could have been as a lack of shoulder responsibility by the political elite, and of course, the civil society as well have failed in their own part, and we are all at peace in one way or the other. But the sole responsibility for all these problems is as a result of all these Arab states, which up to now there has never been a real explanation of why Arab exists, even by the security forces of Nigeria.
Oh, okay, now, Dawa, but do you think that, the security operatives would have done more to prevent things from happening, especially when it comes to intelligence gathering?
Well, a nation is totally depending on its security force. When the security network of any nation is viable, definitely everybody will be vulnerable. Therefore, I think the Nigerian security, they are doing their best. But of course, it needs a collaboration by the international community to ensure that Nigeria is supported in this tough time. Not only Nigerian security will be left alone with this long-time war, in this region.
All right. Now, let's talk about the use of women. We actually saw like a trend of that, when a few years after the Chibok girls were abducted. Now we're seeing it happen again. Does this scream desperation on behalf of the terrorists?
Well, you can now see in some hostile places like in the Middle East. We know the terrorists, they use human for shielding them during encountering with the security force. Like ISIS, ISWAP, and many other terrorists, you can see they're kidnapping, and this strategy, they are doing it to harm children and women, and even all the general public. They are danger of this activity by them. So the aspect of Chibok is entirely a different case. But this time around, it has metamorphosed to another level where, it has become unbearable. And we think the government should reinforce the government.
All right. Well, thank you so much for speaking to us on this, Dawa. Moving away from that, food insecurity is on the rise in Nigeria, with millions of citizens struggling to access basic necessities like food. The country's food crisis is worsening, and experts warn of dire consequences for national security and economic stability. News Central's correspondent Juliet Rowland compiled this report.
Nigeria is facing a severe food crisis with over 20 million people lacking access to sufficient food. The country's food insecurity rate has risen by 30% in the past year alone, with some states experiencing rates as high as 50%.
I went to buy bread and the woman just came in. The woman requested for what? Gari and sugar. One, this woman is elderly. She's no longer a young lady. She must have children that are grown up. So she's buying gari, 1 cup of gari, 1 milk cup of gari, and sugar, 15 naira. What is that going to do for her for the night? What about the children? That is how sad the situation in this country is these days. So it's really sad. I don't know how best to advise the government to make the price stable. But as it is right now, they just need to make food available.
The crisis is attributed to a combination of factors, including conflicts, climate change, poverty and poor agricultural practices. The consequences will be severe, with food insecurity fueling social unrest, crime and terrorism, while also exacerbating malnutrition, stunting and mortality rates among children.
There's climate change that the entire world is dealing with. And this is not peculiar to Nigeria. There's climate change in the world, there's flooding, there's, farmers are not able to produce at optimal levels anymore. At the same time, Nigeria is now being faced with the issue of conflict. Our farmers are being displaced from their farms. So what do you expect from that scenario? Low productivity in the country.
Experts recommend a multifaceted approach to address the crisis, including increased investment in agriculture, conflict resolution, social protection programs, and climate resilience initiative. The government must also address corruption and inefficiencies in the agricultural sector to ensure food security for all Nigerians.
Farmers need to be able to access quality inputs. Secondly, they need access to the right advice. The third cardinal point is access to markets. And then fourthly, but farmers need access to credit. The government needs to step in and provide all the support that the farmers need at this time.
Nigeria's food insecurity crisis requires immediate attention and action. The government, private sector, and international community must work together to address the root causes of the crisis and ensure food security for all Nigerians.
The Nigerian Army has pledged its readiness and commitment to transform the military into one that will be more effective, efficient, and envied by all globally. According to the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, this underscores the need for more effort in the activities of the Nigerian Army to improve national unity, integration, and development. The Chief of Army Staff was speaking at the commencement of activities to mark the 2024 Nigerian Army Day Celebration with the theme, Transforming the Nigerian Army, Imperative for Combating Contemporary Security Challenges Within a Joint Environment. News Central's Chizoba Anionwe was there and now tells us more.
This yearly event usually begins with prayers offered by religious leaders and personnel of the Nigerian Army across all formations and units in the country. Beginning with the Jumat prayers Friday in Jos, the Plateau State capital, where the 3 Armored Division of the Nigerian Army is hosting this year's event. Religious leaders say this event is to thank God for the successes recorded in the past year while praying for more achievements in the years ahead.
The Nigerian Army logo on top of our badge, you can see "In God We Trust." So, Army believes in God. So we keep our duty to God and pray to Him to grant us success in all our operations.
When the children of Israel were going to war, God did instruct even the priests to come behind them so that as He uphold them in prayers, then the battle will be won. So prayer is so significant that we cannot do without prayer if we want to win war, particularly in the challenging times that we are passing through.
Apart from these spiritual aspects of the NATCEL, it is also a time of stock-taking for the Nigerian Army to make amends where necessary for more successes. The Chief of Army Staff was represented at events which took place at the Central Mosque and the Sebastian Catholic Military Church, both in Maxwell Kobe Cantonment, Jos.
The Nigerian Army's commitment to the whole of society, the whole of government, and the whole of nation's approach to strategic preparedness and readiness that strengthens our national resilience is real.
My command philosophy seeks to transform the Nigerian Army into a well-trained, equipped, and highly motivated force towards achieving our constitutional responsibilities within a joint environment.
Chairperson of the Nigerian Army Officers' Wives Association felicitated with the men and women of the Nigerian Army.
I wish peace for the country so that our army can relax. I wish for a better nation, a better Nigeria, no more wars, where everybody will live happily. I wish the Nigerian Army another 161 years.
There was praise and worship from different choirs with words of prayer for the fallen heroes at the events. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba, Anionwe.
Similarly, about 100 widows and less privileged residents of the Apo-Dutse community in the federal capital, Abuja, have received palliative interventions as part of efforts to reduce the hardship being experienced by citizens. Now, this was by the Shola Mese Foundation during the opening of its Skill Acquisition Center in the community and commencement of its Widows Empowerment Initiative. Amadin Uyi reports.
It was the empowerment of about 100 widows from the Apo-Dutse community in Abuja as part of efforts to reduce the hardship being experienced by citizens.
This initiative is aimed at empowering individuals who lack the financial means to learn valuable skills and providing a lifeline to the underprivileged widows who need economic support to rebuild their lives.
The event also saw the unveiling of a skill acquisition center and the commencement of a widows outreach program by the Shola Mese Foundation. Many in attendance say it will help reach out to those in need and called on residents of the community to support the empowerment initiative.
We appeal to the people of Apo-Dutse community as their pilot community to fully support this initiative as we embark on the mutual beneficial journey together.
The Skill Acquisition Center that we're going to unveil today would reach out to persons in need. Reach out to persons that really deserving of this training so that they can have their financial stability and also they can also be resilient on their own.
It's a plus to the government taking back the on the school out of school children, persons with special needs, widows, and so many. I think Almajiris too. I think it's a plus to the government, and the government will always appreciate foundations like this.
They expressed optimism that the initiative will transform the lives of beneficiaries.
Through our partnership, a lot of lives will be impacted, and so we will collaborate well with this and see how far it will go. So this is a laudable activity. Like I said before, in terms of the Nigerian situation today, we want the government, we want private individuals to be able to partner and do greater things.
Graduating from here, having the starter pack, they will be on their feet and they will open their own businesses. And from there, they will also employ. So they will now be empowered. So this is a great empowerment initiative.
Gestures like this can go a long way to save Nigerians and then put our country in the right path.
Like we always say nowadays, what God cannot do does not exist. So we actually believe that it's going to help the country, not just as per humanitarian service, but it's going to reduce crime rate in our society.
The Shola Mese Foundation says that it hopes to scale up its humanitarian intervention program to less privileged Nigerians across all states of the country. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Thank you, Amadin, for that report. Now we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, the news continues. Welcome back. Nigeria's debt repayment now exceeds both recurrent and capital expenditure despite the bloated recurrent spending in the 2024 budget and a significant infrastructure gap. This is alongside the country's foreign direct investment being at an all-time low of under $1 billion. Chief Executive Officer of the CFG Advisory, Tilewa Adebajo, disclosed this while speaking on Nigeria's fiscal environment in an era of monetary policy tightening at the July 2024 edition of the Finance Correspondents Association of Nigeria bi-monthly forum in Lagos. Now, although 8.7 trillion naira was earmarked for capital expenditure in the 2024 budget, infrastructure development will receive just 1.32 trillion naira of this. Lagbaja said Nigeria's current debt burden of $130 billion is being serviced by 95% of revenues, as debt repayment now exceeds both recurrent and capital expenditure. Now, joining me on the news to discuss this is an investment and research analyst at Meristem Securities Limited, Oyindamola Oyenuga. Hello, Oyindamola. Thank you so much for joining me.
Good morning.
All right,
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, Oyin. Now, with over $100 billion in debt, would you say it is time for Nigeria to seek debt renegotiation?
Okay. I mean, where we currently are is not something that we didn't expect. We've been seeing the signs for, quite a while. Looking at the country's debt, it has risen to, significant levels to about 121 trillion naira. That's as at the first quarter of this year, compared to 97 trillion naira in 2023 full year. And generally, you are seeing that the impact of higher borrowing, especially from the domestic market, domestic borrowings, and also the impact of FX, right, had major implications on the debt results that we saw for Q1 2024. So I mean, even looking at it, our debt service is extremely high, and constituting about 95% of the government's revenue. So I mean, this just points to the fact that there are already significant concerns, and the question of debt sustainability is on the table, right? What's the future of the country's debt status, and what's the way forward? So in terms of the question, is a renegotiation currently on the table? If you look at the country's the debts, what makes up our debt status and constitution generally, we currently don't have any bonds, especially like Euro bonds maturing this year. That's 2024. We still have until about 2025 before we start to see maturing bills. We think we have one of about 1.12 billion naira. So that kind of still leaves room for us, for repayments to be made before that time comes up. And also looking at the global markets, the global economy, right now rates are still quite high. Major monetary authorities have taken on that contractionary stand for quite a long time. But recently we've seen the ECB cut rates at their last meeting. But generally we're still seeing that hawkish stance from the global market. So I mean, with interest rates still remaining quite high, especially repayment rates are still remaining quite high. I don't think right now a debt renegotiation is quite or would I say reasonable for the government, looking at we still have up to like 2025 for maturing bills to occur, and then with interest rates still remaining high. I don't think the concept of debt renegotiation is on the table. Although yes, there are significant concerns about our debt levels rising very high.
So you're actually talking about the renegotiation now. What impact do you think this renegotiation could have on Nigeria's credit worthiness? That's if Nigeria decides to even embark on it.
So a renegotiation on a normal day, right, renegotiation of our debts on a normal day would significantly bring that negative sentiment towards the economy. I mean, even taking a cue from Ghana's renegotiation, we saw how that played out for the economy, and they brought out a haircut of about 37% on the country's debt, and we saw how that impacted investor sentiment towards the economy and towards Ghana bonds generally. So right now, yes, the debt concerns are a lot, and like I mentioned before, I don't think a renegotiation is quite probable for the country right now, especially because of what it implies, right? That's negative view towards the economy. And in recent times, this administration, they are doing a lot to try to improve the outlook on the economy, from the monetary stance, from the fiscal authorities, and various aspects of the economy. We have seen that tilt towards trying to improve the outlook on the economy. So I don't think right now that a debt renegotiation is improbable. And if it does happen, right, we know what that brings. I mean, just taking a cue from another African economy like Ghana, it's going to bring a lot of negative sentiments and even implications towards the Nigerian economy, seeing that it kind of gives that signal that this form of turbulence and impending danger and all that. So generally that would bring a lot of bad light or sentiments towards the economy.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Oyindamola, for speaking to us on, Nigeria's debt repayment and how it has actually exceeded recurrent and capital expenditure. Thank you for your time. Away from that, the National Identity Management Commission's alleged data breach has highlighted the risks of lacking strong data protection and privacy. That's the privacy laws in the digital age. Now, with more Nigerians embracing digital services, there are growing calls for the enforcement of the Data Protection Laws and Cybercrime Act to guarantee citizens' rights to the privacy and security of their data. News Central's Ni Omoni provides further context.
By creating micro accounts with authorization, a first bank employee diverted 40 billion naira. Imagine what can be done with a national identification number if it can be accessed with just 100 naira. In early 2024, the Foundation for Investigative Journalism announced a data breach. Now, a Pan-African social enterprise, Paradigm Initiative, similarly reports finding the sale of such sensitive information on at least one website.
We obviously in March followed up on the case, and when that happened, we knew that Express Verify would go offline, but we also knew, this is our work, we knew that there were many other websites, and so we found out there was another one called envied. And if you check the NIMSI statement, you see that they have many others, listed. And that's why we went ahead to buy a few NIN slips, including that of the National Commissioner of the Nigeria Data Protection Commission and the Minister for the Digital Economy and Communications, Bosun Tijani.
However, the National Identity Management Commission of Nigeria denies any breach of its databases containing citizens' information. Still, the cybersecurity firm Surfshark reported a significant 64% rise in recorded data breaches in Nigeria during the first quarter of 2023 compared to the prior year.
Yeah, holding your slip alone doesn't give you money. It leads to other exploit patterns. So I can go to the route of phishing and fish users to harvest their bank credentials and take their money, or I could go to all these loan apps, so which is another possibility.
So before they would guess and call you randomly to ask certain questions, now they don't have to guess. They have that exact information. They can open an account in your name, they can do fraud in your name, they can get a SIM card in your name, they can send text messages in your name, they can cause trouble in your name. God help you that it doesn't end up with issues around kidnapping, terrorism, or even burglary.
As the Nigerian government prepares to launch a new national identification card system in August, ensuring robust privacy and security of citizens' data will be paramount.
I just see good mind. I'm Nigerian, so I know that we have a problem of security. We're not that advanced when it gets to security, right? So I'm sure that the attackers, bad people, they are just waiting for them to launch it. Instead of me going to take from the different part, I'm waiting for you to just give me like everything that has everything. I just go there and pick it. I can tell you, I'm not sure they've tested enough.
Apart from the case that Paradigm Initiative has instituted and is working on, we can have a major class action lawsuit that demands accountability from NIMSI and NDPC, of course, because they're the data governance institution.
For now, authorities have taken down most of the websites in question and pledged to prosecute any offenders. However, advocacy groups continue pushing for stronger data protection laws and practices to build public trust in the safekeeping of personal information. Lawmakers and other stakeholders also remain engaged in oversight and solutions. In Lagos for News Central, Ni Omoni.
Coming up after the break, former opposition parties get 12 ministries in new South African government. We'll bring you details in a moment. The news continues in southern Africa, where South African President Cyril Ramaphosa announced his new government on Sunday, with the former opposition parties getting 12 out of 32 portfolios after the ruling ANC lost its outright parliamentary majority. The African National Congress, which has governed the country since the advent of democracy in 1994, kept 20 out of 32 cabinet positions. They included key ministries such as Foreign Affairs, Finance, Defense, Justice, and Police. A statement from the party welcomed the president's announcements as an important step forward and a testament to the resilience of democracy. The largest coalition partner, the Democratic Alliance, will hold 6 portfolios, including Home Affairs, Environment, and Public Works. Now, according to the United Nations, more than 1 in 4 young people in Africa, around 72 million, are unemployed, without education or training, with sub-Saharan Africa having the highest youth unemployment rate in the world at over 30%. Analysts say young people are excluded from development processes in many African countries. This pushes them to participate in demonstrations as they try to change political systems. They warn that the Gen Z anti-finance bill protest in Kenya should serve as a warning to the political establishment throughout Africa and for African leaders to come together and address challenges that the youths face. Meanwhile, following demonstrations in Kenya in the past week, some posters have surfaced on social media about the possibility of protests in Tanzania, Malawi, and Ghana. Now, to discuss this further, I'm being joined by a political analyst, Makomborero Harushivishe. Hello, Makomborero. Thank you so much for joining me at this time.
Hello, thank you for hosting us.
All right, so let's have your reaction to the possible youth protest in Africa. Now, do you think the recent Kenyan protest, could possibly herald the long-predicted youth rebellion in Africa? And, what are the key drivers of discontent among young African youths?
Yeah, this is not coming as a surprise, considering that by 2030, which is 6 years, just 6 years away from today, young Africans are expected to make up 42% of world's youth, and they will also account for 75% of, the population in Africa, to be specific, those under the age of 35 in Africa. With such a large population of young people, there is need for supportive policies and programs on inclusive youth development, which are critical now more than ever. And this is what the older generation is failing to understand. They are failing to understand that young people now need to be involved in critical decision making. Young people need to be involved in critical economic, participation activities. They need a share in the modes and means of production. Young people need, to be consulted and involved at the very high levels in as far as how their countries are run, because they are now the biggest political capital in Africa. Now, and in 6 years, it will be 3/4 of the political capital, be it on the democratic and also demographic parameters. So what is really kickstarting this? It's natural. It's young people being excluded from the economy, yet they are the majority. How many young people own land in Africa? How many young people own mines in Africa? How many young people own big businesses in Africa? Of all the tenders that we see from governments, what percentage goes to young Africans? So the government's failure to accommodate young people and increase in vices like corruption, where in the middle of poverty, unemployment, and hopelessness, we see government, looting, like in Zimbabwe, I'm sure, from the gold mafia, to more recently, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions being looted, and them only depending on capturing government institutions like
Now, in light of what you have actually just said, I agree with you that a lot has been happening in Africa, and the youths are hired. If not, they're getting there. So what are the potential consequences, if I must ask, for economic development and stability if a youth spring were to occur in Africa?
The consequences are natural. Is the logical conclusion to what is politically, socially, and economically logical. It's for the majority to be heard. It's the majority to be in charge. That's what democracy is after all. That's why the liberation struggle was fought for, from colonialism and oppression. It was to let the majority voice and will reign supreme. It's what our constitutions are always reflecting. So the conclusion will be a new generation is coming on, and it will be generational consensus all across Africa. It will be those governments, if they fail to open up space for young people, they will be swept aside. And those that will try to resist, like what we are seeing in Kenya, where young people are being abducted and arrested and tortured, like what we have seen in Swaziland, where young people are being killed and the opposition assassinated, what we've been seeing in Zimbabwe, where young people and the opposition are arrested, jailed, tortured, and abducted. And these are trends that are happening across Africa. They are trying to stop the unstoppable because it's coming. It's just like they should remember maybe around 50 years ago when colonialists thought they were strong, they were unshakable, but the waves of change, the winds of change were inevitable. And this is the situation where we are in right now. So the logical conclusion will be this revolution will be over when young people have a meaningful stake in as far as decision making in critical governance issues is concerned, where young people have a critical stake in the economy, a critical stake in land, a critical stake in how they determine and set their future.
All right. Well, I was actually going to ask you a few questions on, the Occupy movements and the Arab Spring, because history has not soon forgotten all those. But hopefully we'll get to speak more on this at another time. But thank you so much, Makomborero, for joining me and speaking on this.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Away from that story, we move to East Africa, where hundreds of people marched in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, on Sunday in tribute to those who died in anti-government demonstrations this week. Now, according to the NGOs, at least 30 people died in protests driven by a government drive to substantially raise taxes in the East African country, although the government has not given any official toll. The largely peaceful rallies turned violent last Tuesday when lawmakers passed the deeply unpopular tax increases following pressure from the International Monetary Fund. Police opened fire on protesters who stormed the parliament complex and a fire broke out. The clashes were unprecedented in the history of the country since its independence from Britain in 1963. Now, in other news from around the world, paramilitary forces battling Sudan's regular army for more than a year said they had taken a key state capital in the southeast, prompting thousands to flee. Earlier Saturday, witnesses said there was fighting in the streets and rising panic among residents seeking to flee. Sudan has been gripped by war since April 2023, when fighting erupted between forces loyal to Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the RSF led by his former deputy, Mohammed Hamdan Daglo. The UK election has seen a significant number of candidates of British Nigerians running for office. Now, these candidates bring a unique perspective to the table, bridging the gap between two cultures and communities. Their presence in politics not only represents the changing demographics of the UK, but also provides an opportunity for Nigerian voices to be heard and represented. For News Central, Afia Hagen has been taking a look.
Nigerian candidates will contest for seats in the UK's July 4th elections. Rishi Sunak's Conservative government is widely expected to be replaced by Keir Starmer's Labour Party. Democracy Club's analysis shows 20 British Nigerian candidates representing major parties like Labour, the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats. Others are from smaller parties or running as independents. This election could lead to the most diverse parliament in British history, with more ethnic minorities, including Nigerians, vying for seats. Labour has the most British Nigerian candidates with 8. The Liberal Democrats will field 6 candidates. The Conservatives have 3 British Nigerian candidates seeking re-election. Independent candidates include those vying for seats with the Workers' Party of Britain and the Yoruba Party of the UK. The election will field 4,379 candidates, the highest number ever, surpassing the 2010 record of 4,093. The 650 constituencies have seen increased candidate numbers, with at least 5 per seat. The UK goes to the polls on Thursday, with results expected by Friday. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagan.
And that's all at this hour. Well, before we go, let's take another look at some of our top stories. We told you that condemnations continue to breed Borno twin blast as more victims arrive hospital. We also told you that South Africa's Democratic Alliance Party gets new government. Finally, you heard that Sudan's RSF lays claim to overtaking key town. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Dashen, Usman.